Hello and welcome to my video. I haven't started without you. The reason I've got this paint on here is to stop my camera going in and out of focus. Now I know people have said all you have to do is set it to manual focus. Now this camera is quite, well, it's a big sort of new Sony thing, and it's got lots of buttons and pulleys and knobs on it and whistles, and quite frankly I haven't figured out how to do the it sounds silly, doesn't it? I haven't figured out quite yet how to do the manual setting. So but the fact that I've got this on here should mean that that will stay in focus. Let's hope so. Anyway, what I've got here is some of this. This is Payne's grey, royal blue, Payne's grey. There's some Pthalo blue there which I haven't used yet, and there's down the bottom here there's red ochre and alkyd. I like alkyd at the moment. So what I'm going to do is paint a seascape, something sort of from my mind, but I have to admit that I do like Turner, William Turner. He knew a thing or two about seascapes. Now I have painted seascapes before. When I was much younger I painted a few for a company which produced legal fakes for people who had a lot of money and wanted something on their walls. I guess it was in yuppie time when everyone was .com millionaires, that sort of stuff. So I would paint realistic Dutch seascapes. I'll stick one on the screen in a moment so you can see the sort of thing. The sea that you'll notice in the picture is like a mirror, it's dead flat. I'm not a big sea painter. I'll have a go on this one, see what happens. But it could be interesting anyway. So it's a little bit freehand. Well, it's all freehand, isn't it, really? I want to produce something that gives the feeling of a Turner type sky. And basically, when he painted skies, he just let rip. He just did what he wanted. You know, sort of all the colours under the sun. And he would put yellow in the sky, and he would put reds. Now, the problem with putting yellow in the sky when you have blue, you've got to be a little bit careful because you'll make, guess what, green. And as much as I like green, I don't particularly want too much in my skies. So I'm going to put something, I'm going to put a shape here of some kind of cliff. Very rough at the moment. So it's a sort of, it's going to be a little bit tempestuous, I suppose, because that's what I like. I don't like flat paintings that don't have any feeling in them. I mean, if you're just going to record a seascape or, you know, whatever, mountain lake scene, quite foreboding. I'll make it more foreboding in a minute. Let's have a little bit of something there. Who knows what it is? Don't know. It's just a bump. It's a bump at the moment until it becomes something else. So there's a roughly horizontal line. It's about as horizontal as I'm going to get it. And it can always be changed and adjusted as you go along. So this is really just getting a feel for what might happen. As I said, I like Turner. I think I've looked at pretty well most of the Turners that were ever painted, and believe me, there are lots, thousands and thousands, and they all, you can tell a Turner because of his skies. They're just so monumental and majestic. It's difficult not to know. And the reason the way he got that effect is, I think, a lot of it is to do with A, he knew what he was doing, obviously, and B, he was a fast worker. He probably painted in explosive sort of gestures, which, to my way of thinking, works. If you pick away at a painting, you know, tickle, tickle, tickle here, tickle there, you're going to end up with a painting that looks tickled. It's not going to have the sort of, it's not going to have the pizzazz and the drama that you would want in a Turner type painting. I'm going to put a bit of colour here which will represent the beach. Now it won't stay this colour because, as I said, I don't want just a plain old sandy beach. Looks a bit plain old and sandy at the moment, but we'll change that. The water, I think, let's have it. So the water is going to come across this way, but it's going to eat into there as well. So let's just get some tones on this. Going by the amount of Turner paintings that I've looked at. If you don't know who I'm talking about, by the way, it's William Turner. I'll give you his full name on the screen. It's worth looking at his work. There may be some of it you don't like, and there may be some that you think is really amazing. What I find interesting is how his style changed as he got older. It went from tight and dramatic, obviously, very dramatic. It went from tight to interesting to exciting as he aged and as his style matured. Just going to soften this line here just a little bit. That's good. Right. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more, sorry about the floor creaking, I live in a very old French house and it creaks. I'm going to put some dark in the beach here. If you put the dark in at the beginning of the painting, then you can add the light as you work through. So for instance, if I let this area here dry, with these dark bits, later I can add light bits to them when it's dried off, and it won't get too disgusting and muddy, and you really don't want a disgusting and muddy painting. The other thing I might do is just a little bit of red ochre in there as well, because you get stuff on beaches, like you might get a line of discoloration as it comes across here, which could be seaweed, who knows. But anyway, whatever it is, I'm going to put some of it there. I'll look up whatever it is later on Google. Now then, so that's got some nice interesting tones and textures. Okay, so back to the sky, my favourite part. I'm just going to get my brush a wipe. In case you're new to my channel, I don't use turpentine. I'll use the same brush pretty well all the way through, up to a point. I'll only use 2 brushes, and to clean it, I just wipe it to get the paint off. I don't mind if I leave some of the colour on there because it'll get lost. It'll get absorbed in the other colours, and actually it adds patina to which is. If you can look up the word patina, you'll understand. It adds an interesting texture and colour variation to your painting. So, I've got a piece of paper here, and I'm going to start poking around on this. Like, for instance, if I want drama in this sky, there's no point having this and this colour next to it without any variation. So what I will probably do is get a bit of light just there. You see what happens? It starts to excite the eye. Now, some of you may not think that this is exciting. Everyone has their own definition of exciting. Some people may say, if you think that's exciting, you need to get out more. Well, I can only agree on that, but I think we'd all like to do that at the moment. Right, I'm going to push some colour along there. I want a little bit of white there. I quite like that. I'll leave it for now. I'm sure I can use that later on. Up here is just white board, and I'm probably going to I'm going to have to think about how much drama and mayhem I want to get into this picture. So I'm going to sort of just be a bit bold. Now, a lot of people think I'm crazy when I do this, but red ochre, which is basically brown. Who would put brown in a sky? Well, I would, because quite frankly, it's a reddish brown. Let's have something over there and just push it into the colour near the horizon. Don't forget, if you're looking up Turner, or have looked up Turner in the last few minutes, you'll understand why I'm doing this. There we are, nice bit of red there. And I see I've got a little bit of flare from my lights, so I might just adjust the light quickly. Well, I've adjusted the light a little bit. I have to point out something here. I live in, as I said, a little, well, it's actually not that little, but an old French house. And it is, I have to say, the hardest house to light. If you're photographing something or painting something, it is not an easy house to light. Because of small windows, it's south facing, so when the sun comes in the window it absolutely belts through here. So I've got the shutters closed, and I've got a light over that side there, which is an LED thing, and they're quite ferocious. You can turn it up and down a bit, but it's a very, as I said, a very difficult house to light. So bear with me if you've borne with me up to now. Thanks. Right, let's carry on then. Let's see what we can do. I've got this is the alkyd that I'm using, almost through this bottle. Wonderful stuff. Really like it. And there are, if you look it up on the web, it can be toxic if you don't ventilate your room a little bit, but then I think that goes for pretty well everything. Okay, so this is, as I said, this is brown. I'm putting brown in the sky. I am obviously completely nuts. And how are we doing here? Let's have a look. So the sea, right. Here we have a rock. I'm going to put some texture in the rock. There we have the sort of beach type thing, which I'll be working on. This may be a two-parter, I'm not sure really. I've been doing quite a lot of two-part videos lately, and I'm not sure that people really like them that much. I get people saying, oh yes, I'll come back and look at part 2, but I don't know. I think it's more of a satisfying experience for people to see everything from start to finish. I'm just going to lift that line a little bit there. It was drooping, and I don't want a drooping line. A drooping line on the edge of a picture will make the eye literally follow it and drop off. And I don't want that. So anyway, okay, what else should we put in here? Tell you what I might try. I wasn't planning on doing this, but as you're here, especially for you, I'm just going to try and negotiate getting over all my wires to get to my table where the paints are. This is not something I use much. I don't mean the table, I mean this colour. Just doing a bit of a balancing act here. Okay, this colour. This is primary yellow. And I'm not a big yellow fan. However, God, that light is driving me nuts. Let me see what I can do. Right, that's much better. Why didn't I do that in the beginning? Oh well. Okay, so yellow, you see. Now, yellow is not a colour that I'm naturally drawn to. However, Turner did put it in his skies, and if it's good enough for old Bill, I'm going to have a go. And if it goes wrong, as I'm sure you know by now, if you are one of my followers, it doesn't matter. This is one of the things that makes people paint well. Get the right attitude. If you're into detail, fine, that's okay. Be careful. Obviously, you would have to. And I've done it in the past. I've done enough detailed work in the past to know this. and I don't want to do any more. That was all part of my previous existence as a commercial artist. Some of the detailed stuff I've had to do has been painful. So this is why now that I'm of a certain age, living in France, painting landscapes for you. It's painting is my joy, and I like to do it the way I want, rather than as a commercial artist having to do what other people want. I've mentioned this before actually, and it's absolutely true. You know, I just want to, in fact, I'll tell you what, this is interesting, because people say, oh, will you do a commission for me? Well, no, I don't do commissions anymore. When you're a commercial artist, you are spending your life basically doing commissions, because you're doing what everyone else wants, and it's just not for me. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So I'm going to do as I like now. So what I was saying earlier about using just 2 brushes, this is the other brush that I'm going to use. This is my big sky brush, and you'll see what happens when I use that in a moment. Although I have got another one of these spare sitting here, just in case I want to do anything with some white. So this is my main brush, the one I started with. That's what all this has been done with. So I'll keep that there. This is just for, as I said, tickling a bit of white. And this one is the one that gives the magic effect, which I'm going to show you now, because I want to flatten some of the sky down a bit. At the moment, it's covered in brush marks. Now that wouldn't have particularly worried William Turner, but it worries me a little bit. I quite like brush marks, but I don't want too many. So all you do is you just skim this brush that way. So this is the bit that's contacting the side. So I use this, then I turn completely and use that side. Don't use the tip. The only time I'll use the tip is to smudge something and then go over it. If there's something that looks too strong, then I'll smudge it with the corner and then blend it with the side. So here, just going to soften that a little bit. Yeah, not too many swipes, and then a wipe. And more paper. And along here, just from there at the moment, up, and basically I'm doing all different directions. I'm doing like a cross and then diagonals. So I go like that, like that, like that, like this. And you sort of get into the rhythm, and you can produce some very interesting skies doing this. You notice possibly how I'm being very crafty here. I said that I'm actually painting a seascape, but I have to admit to this. What I'm really doing, have I started the camera again? Maybe I'll just double check this. Oh yes, it says it's recording. What I'm actually doing is painting clouds with a bit of sea underneath. Because my main passion, I guess, in painting is painting clouds. I absolutely love clouds. I'll tell you something, if you're really into clouds, I mean, I don't just like clouds, I absolutely adore clouds. I always have done. And I'll tell you what I was going to say is it takes a lot of discipline to actually drive my car properly without ending up in a field. One of the really good things about France is that if you go into the, I live in the rural area here, it's very rural, to the point where you can go for a drive and not see a car for 10 or 15 miles. It's just empty roads. So you can actually use that to your advantage. What I usually do though, if I see something really nice, is just get out the car and look at it. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm going to start texturizing the cliff in a minute, but I'm using this just to wipe out a few little bits of paint, because I'm going to be adding white to the sea, and when I do, I don't want to be putting the white on a pile of paint. What I want to do is actually knock it back so that I've got some this is just a stain here now, that light bit, but that's perfectly acceptable in a painting. Another thing I've said before is, if you are painting a picture, you don't have to have a mountain of paint. You can, in fact, just have a stain, literally just a tint. It's still a painting. It doesn't sort of it's not like cheating at all. Every artist in history has done this pretty well. If it looks good, keep it. Now, in a minute, when I get the sea in, however, before I get the sea in, I'm going to do a little bit of work on the sky again. But when I do get the sea in, what I'll do is, to get perspective, I will pull the sea. It's going to be a very calm, no crashing waves here. Maybe a hint of a crashing wave, but it's just going to be lines to draw you in. I'll use the thin line of foam here just to lead you into the picture. I want people to go here. In fact, let me just explain something to you. There are different compositions. The main interest point, usually in a painting, above centre to the right. I could actually put the sun in there hiding behind the clouds. Okay, that gives you one point. To get you to that point, and although you may not need it because it'll be, if I do it, it'll be bright, is you have lines that lead you to that part of the painting. So when I put my line of foam here, that will lead you that way. It can't lead you any other way because the sea's over there. It's going to lead you to the sea. So I want 1 point, 2 points, and then 3 points. This will be another point here. So bright, bright line. Composition is fascinating. Not to everyone. I'm sure that if I stood here and talked about composition for an entire video, several people would pass out. There would be snoring amongst you. Okay, now here I'm using paper. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want some shapes and lines that look like cliffery. I want to show a bit of cliff. So to show cliff, you've got to show cliffery. And you can give the illusion of rocks quite well. This is all in a bit of shade here. But I can just, using my fingernail through the paper, I can do things like this to get the effect. Turner would have done things like this. They know this for a fact. You look at his paintings, it's not all brush marks. Some of it is like he's used horsehair or cloth, all kinds of stuff. Apparently he used to use snuff. And if you don't know what snuff is, if you're very, very young, snuff is ground up tobacco. And people used to put it on their hand, I think it was somewhere around here, and then they would sniff it. They'd snort this powdered tobacco. And I think it made people sneeze. I can imagine that it would, actually. Let's just have a bit more light there. And snuff is basically the same colour as sort of yellow ochre, this colour here. Now I know that from first-hand experience, because when I was about 7 or 6 years old, somewhere around there, I had an aunt, and she had a friend, an old lady. So this is going back a bit. So this woman would have been born in Victorian times, certainly in the late 18, let me think. She would have been probably born in about 1880, 1890. And I remember her using snuff. Anyway, so Turner used snuff. It was very fashionable back then. And to get some colours, he used to spit snuff onto his painting and rub it in to try and get the colour that he was after. Because of course things in those days were a little bit different from now. You know, we can go to the shop and we can buy paint in a very convenient tube, ready-made. All you've got to do is take the top off, squirt it, and off you go. In the old days, they had to make all their own colours. They had to grind up the pigment and add it to oil, and add any other things to it to actually make it dry. So they would put things in like, I think shellac was one thing, or gum arabic, all kinds of things. And so yeah, he would do that. So luckily I don't need to. Just a little bit of info there about Turner. I'm thinking of in the future, people have asked me about painting portraits. Now, I've painted lots of portraits, and I've drawn more than I've painted. But I suppose in my entire life, since I left college, I'm up to about 300, I think. I used to really enjoy portraits, but not so much now. I'm more into landscape. But I might have a go at doing a portrait or two. There's one particular artist, which some of you may have heard of, and that's Edgar Degas, French impressionist, known for painting ballet dancers and racehorses. And he was around the same time as Van Gogh and Renoir and all the others. Got that bit of light looking nice, I think. Okay. But his portraits, if you again look up him on the internet, Degas, D-E-G-A-S, and look at some of his portraits that he painted. They're really quite stunning. And I think he never really wanted to paint portraits. He wanted to paint ballet dancers and racehorses, but of course when he started he had to do what made money, and painting portraits was the thing. If you were wealthy, photography was around then, but if you were wealthy and you wanted a family portrait, you went off to a painter and you got painted. Whereas of course now it's different. You get a photograph, unless the painter is extremely well known. It seems to be working in a circle, doesn't it? It's going back. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of sea work here. Not keen on that line there yet. A little bit. I'm not sure. You know, it's a little bit. I mean, how do I? Sometimes you can't explain things that you feel like this. And this is going to sound really silly. This is a little bit. You know, and I want it to be more wow, you know, have a bit of oomph to it. So I'm going to get my oomph brush. This is my oomph brush. A little bit of yellow on the corner there, and I'm just going to sort of put in something there, just to catch the light a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Right, so beyond the sea in a minute. Before I get there though, I'm going to do a little bit of work just here, where the beach and the cliff come together. What you don't want is a hard line, because there aren't any. In nature you don't often get hard lines. You might get a streak of light on the sea in the distance that will look like a hard line, but over here, this sort of thing, it's always good to sort of scumble the edge a bit, put in some shapes there that the eye can interpret any way, well, the brain can interpret in any way it wants. And if you do it reasonably slickly, you can do things like this that don't require too much work. It's just a touch and a little bit of movement with your hand, and you can get a feeling of something happening in those dark bits there. Okay, now then, a bit more cliff work. Still not quite happy, so I'm going to put, I think we need something like that. Bear in mind that I don't want these to be, these are not cuddly cliffs. These are Davies cliffs, so they're going to be a little bit doomy. As you can see, this has had it now. I'm going to just show you something here, just to get into the sea a little bit, so that you get an idea what's coming later. So I'm really down to my last few plastic pallets. I'm not throwing this away, obviously. This has still got paint on it that's viable, so I'm going to just put that to the side for a minute, and I'm going to get a palette knife, this one, and I'm going to get some white paint, and I'm going to start working through there to bring these three elements together: sky, water, earth, with a bit of a wave. And I'm going to get some white paint. Okay, white paint. The colour that is used mostly by pretty well all artists. We all get through a lot of white, and lovely stuff. I mean, look at that. You could eat that. I don't recommend it, by the way, don't eat it. But it just looks delicious. Anyway, so here we go. I'm going to do a breaker, a distant breaker coming in from the sea. The sea is going to be light and dark over here. There's going to be a sort of wave thing across there. I'm going to put some colour there before I put the breaker on there. But I just want to sort of show you how you can do this. Just a little hint of water just over there in the distance. Now, if you're doing this and the palette knife gets to be in that sort of condition, that dark bit down the edge, it actually renders most of the paint on there as useless. But I've just seen somewhere where I can use it, and it's quite obvious really. I'm just going to smear that on there, because all I'm going to do here, this is going to be very shallow water there. So more clean paint. It's on one edge of the thing, it's not right across, it's just on the what will be the top edge. So if I turn that round that way and use it, it's on the top edge. Okay, got that? Good. And let's see what we can do with this. I think some of the water could be broken just here, so it's just coming inland a little bit further, like so. Almost invisible. So again, now I've got defiled paint. So I'm going to put some more defiled paint on here. Nothing goes to waste. Okay. I'm hoping that this will help the people who see a seascape as, you know, maybe a cliff, sky, beach. I mean, all the usual components. But there's this thing where people do this curling, rolling wave that's breaking onto the beach. It is one of the hardest things to paint. And if you start off thinking, right, that's what I'm going to do, there's two ways it can go. You can either be a bit of a natural and you'll just do it and it'll look great, or you will find that you are struggling with something that will put you off painting for life. So don't get into it too soon. Take your time. Find a way of painting the sea that isn't quite so taxing. Do you know what I don't like? I don't like that flat top. But I've got a thing about flat-topped cliffs. I'll be changing that in a moment. In fact, be doing it quite soon, but I just want to get in my head what I'm going to do to the sea. And I think, okay, first of all, before I go on, the sea doesn't have to be blue. You tend to get a blue sea when the sky is blue. It's obviously because there's a reflection. Now, you're not going to get much of a reflection from that, even though it's quite strong colours. You may get some of this effect on the water, and I won't put that in until the end. But what I will do is just get a tone here. Again, if you look at some of Turner's seas, the last thing that he will use is blue. He just didn't do it. He wanted to get over the feeling of the sea being quite threatening, so a lot of his seascapes, funnily enough, were painted so that they look as though they're done at night. Now, I'm going to use Payne's grey, same as I used in the sky, and royal blue, and I'm just going to put in a dark sea. Now, how much am I getting in the way? I may have to get in the way, but I'll try and zoom in to that area after I've started painting. I'll do that digitally so that I don't have to move the camera. It's one of the things about this video editor I've got. You can just pick an area and then just zoom in. Now, is that too bumpy on the top? Yeah, it's a little bit bumpy. I may smudge it down so that it's so stormy that you can't really see where the horizon is. Not sure yet. It's quite a useful little trick. You see, I'm standing over on the left-hand side of the painting. I can't go over there because, as I said, the house is too small. But I need to be able to get in a position where I can get this line without it being too bumpy. Okay, that's reasonably flat for now. That'll do. Okay, so I'm just going to put some textures here. And these textures are for me to cover in white. I might stick a little bit of phthalo blue in it. Nothing much, just something to change the tones a little bit. So this cliff thing, same brush. Oh, before I get to the cliff, I'm just going to have another go with this thing here, the palette knife, and I'm going to just demonstrate something, how I can draw you in to that area, and that is by putting like a line along there. Notice how that sort of leads you up. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. If you look at classical paintings, there are certain things that artists seem to understand from way back. For instance, if you have a painting that has just lots of horizontals, it's very calming. If you have vertical lines, you get a feeling of majesty, sort of power. If you have diagonals, particularly you look at battle scenes, classical paintings, or the type of thing where you've got Roman gods and nymphs and naked ladies prancing about all over the place, they have this angle which leads you into one and helps the thing flow, and it gives a feeling of drama. So if you want drama, diagonals. If you want majesty, straight lines. If you want calm, horizontals. Don't overdo it though, because it can look a bit contrived. Eventually you'll do it without realizing you're doing it. Now this line here, I want to strengthen that a little bit. I want to strengthen there where it connects to that wave. Okay, and then rather than just keep going, if I just keep going there with that white, by the time I get to here, it will be grey, and you won't see it. So you've got to keep it clean. So if you can see the palette knife there, it's got grey paint on it. I don't want that. What I want is white. So I'm going to clean it when I find somewhere to put that brush. Okay, clean palette knife. bit of white, and the waves could also, there could be some residue left here. Which comes down there. Now I'm keeping my eye on what's happening to the paint, and it's still maintaining its colour strength. So I think that there could be okay. Now, if I leave this, although I won't, because I want a bit more light here. If I leave it soon and go and do something else, or even come back tomorrow, I can then add the odd twinkly bit of intense light in those toned down parts. Hope that makes sense. I'll try and do one here now. So I've got, just check where we are. Okay. So here we've got some nice toned down bits of colour. So if I just add the odd spot like that, hopefully I'll be able to zoom in and you'll be able to see this. So the odd little bit of intense white just there. It may not come over very well, but maybe you'll see it. I want to connect this line to this line. Now to do that I'm going to need some white, and I'm just going to do some general, it's not enough, a bit more, just going to do a little bit in there. How's that looking? When I pause and say how's that looking, I'm not asking you, I'm asking myself, and I'm looking in the viewfinder of the camera to see what it looks like in the video, because it's always slightly different than the actual painting. The video tends to enhance the lights and darks a bit. Although I have to say, what I'm seeing in the camera is actually very like the painting. So yeah, that's good, accurate representation. Now, my mind is telling me, the last time I saw a beach like this, I can tell you exactly where this could be, actually. This could be South Wales, along the Gower, what's called the Gower Peninsula. I have a memory of this place going back a long time. I spent 6 weeks there when I was a very young man. In 1976, England had, I don't know whether it was the hottest summer they've ever had since records began, or certainly one of the hottest. Anyway, they had a drought, a severe drought. The pub ran out as lager, and anyway, and I think a truck came round with some water. I was staying with some relatives of mine in a place called, this is Welsh, okay, Llantwit Major. It's not, doesn't sound very Welsh, except the Llantwit bit. It looks like Lantwit, but it's spelled double L-A-N-T-W-I-T, maybe two T's, I'm not sure. But in Welsh, the Welsh language, when you have two L's together, it tends to be pronounced as ll. So Llantwit Major, and it was delightful. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's one of those things I've never forgotten. So there is a place down there. It may have been a beach called Boverton Beach. That rings a bell. Boverton Beach. It's a long time ago, anyway. But I remember there was this cliff like this, which is why I've done that. It's, you know, not exactly like this, but very similar. I'm just going to do a few little bits of something there. I'm just scraping the paint at the moment. Now, this flat top here, let's see what we can do with that. I don't know whether any of you out there have made your own painting videos like this, but it's an interesting experience. I normally when I paint I just have loud music playing and I talk to myself and curse myself when it goes wrong sometimes, not too much, but it's quite strange painting and talking to a camera. It's a bit weird, actually, I have to say. Okay, so I want to change the top of this. Now, the thing is about how things relate to each other. This would be values. You know, if you have a window that's got a lot of light coming through it, and you have a piece of white paper, as the light hits the paper's white. If you hold the paper there, with the light behind it, the white becomes black. And this is what happens here. If we have a bit of light sky behind this dark cliff, you may see some detail down here, but as it comes to the top like this, it will appear to get darker because it's fighting against the light. Your eye can only do so much. And you get this, you get that effect, and it's worth remembering that when you paint something. So if there was green at the top of this, in other words there's trees and foliage growing up there, if you have a strong enough light behind them, they're not going to look green, they're going to look black. Or so dark, it'll give the illusion of it being black. Doesn't mean to say it is. I'm sure most of you know that. So yeah, if I wasn't talking to you now, I'd have music on. Some of it could be construed as lift music, but I don't care. I like whatever it is to be playing that evokes some kind of emotion. Even if it makes me sad, I don't care, because it's the fact that it brings out something and has an effect while I'm painting. Let's put a few mysterious bits along the top edge of that. Rather than it just being a slope, let's just put some bumpy bits. Yeah, this is a technical phrase in painting. If something looks boring, add bumpy bits. It's always good. There we are. That's been bumpy bitted. Right down to where it disappears. Okay, now, right, back to the sea, I think. I've got my lines. I'm gonna try and do something in here. I will probably do a few more things to the cliff. I just don't know what yet, and I might leave it at this sort of level of finished for this video, because I know for a fact this has been going on a long time, and it takes a month of Sundays to upload to YouTube. I think the internet here in rural France is run on gas. It is so slow on certain things. I know that down the end of the road, a couple of 100 metres away, they've laid fibre optics. So maybe one day, if we get connected here, maybe there'll be a faster internet, but this one definitely runs on gas, and if the pilot light goes out, you're totally screwed. So, but then again, doesn't matter, I suppose. Okay, so there we are. We've got a nice sort of foreboding bit of cliffery. The water. What shall we do with the water? Well, oh, and I'll be going back to the sky in a minute, but I want to just get the water sorted out first. How am I going to do this? Well, I've got my dark tones already in there. I've got these light bits here. I've got my bit of, you know, foamy stuff along the edge. I might just break that a little bit and pull some of them back into the ocean just a little bit. I want it to look mechanical. So I'm going to pull that there and there. Okay. That's sort of effective, I suppose. So, same deal again, palette knife, bit of paint just on one edge, don't want too much. And over here, let's just see what we can do. Let me have a little think. How am I going to do it? I've got to visualize crashing waves. What do crash? Well, they're not going to be crashing, they're going to be gentle waves coming in. Okay, that's the sort of sea that I tend to like. So let's just put in a few bits here. Yeah. Looks sort of wet, I suppose. Feel what you're painting. Get the image in your head. If you have to use a photograph, do, but don't just reproduce the photograph, because I don't know, how do I explain it? If I painted a picture and somebody said to me, oh, it looks just like a photograph, I would be mildly ticked off, I think, because that's the last thing I want. I don't want to paint a photograph. Now I'm going to use my, I did say at the beginning only 2 brushes, but 3. I'm using this because I want just nothing on it. All I want to do is just that. But I want to do that with a clean brush, not with a dirty brush. If I decide to add some of these colours, it won't be in this sitting because that needs to dry off before I do it. For me, not all artists, some painters will just do it and they're just so good at it, they'll make it look wonderful. And I know my limitations, and you're not here to see me, well, maybe you are, maybe you are here to see me do it wrong, so I can show you how to fix it, but I want to encourage you not to make you laugh too much. Okay, so I'm going to put another pull there, and then I think I might leave that as it is. Quick look in the camera, it looks wet, yeah, it's okay. Right, now the sky, before I sign off here, and if you're a follower of me, you'll have seen this before. This is quite a nice effect. I won't overdo it on this one because I don't think it needs it. I mean, I've got my version of a slightly Turneresque sky, but what I want to do is just have a little think. Have a little think, Davis. What should we do? Let's intensify the light just in here. So I'm going to hint that the light is over there, behind the clouds possibly. So I'll just add a little bit of light in that sort of area, not too much, just a little. If I can make it look intense, I will. Turner used to paint, if he wanted the sun, he'd just paint an orange spot, or a white spot, or a red spot. He just went for it, and I've never been someone who wants to particularly paint the sun. I like to paint the effect the sun will give when it's poking up behind a cloud, but to actually try and paint the sun is I don't think it's the way to go, really, because you can't. It's so bright you can't look at it, so why paint it? Because you'll never match that kind of brightness. So I would just go for something, you know, this is personal to me, not everyone will do it, just to give the appearance of there's a bit of light in there somewhere, you know, it's come from somewhere. If you do paint the sun or the moon, you can get away with the moon much easier than you can get away with the sun. It must be complete, and I emphasize it, completely round. If it's oval or just slightly off, people will see it and they'll think, that's a bit naff. Just going to just do that there. Okay, so it doesn't look like much at the moment. Hopefully it'll look like something in a moment, in a few seconds. So, get some of this paint off my hands. And back to this, the sky brush. Now this is clean. I hope it's clean. It's clean enough. And all I'm going to do is this. Just a few back and forths. And a few more in a second when I've cleaned this a little bit more. Okay. So I recommend you look at some Turner paintings. You'll have a, if you don't know his work, you'll have a better understanding of why I've made the sky this colour. Sometimes in his paintings he would have quite a light sky with just dark clouds, and he would just paint literally spots. And but he did it with such panache. They just look right. There we are. I think I might stop almost there. There's somebody asked me, I could have answered this. Somebody said, how do you know when a painting is finished? And there are some interesting answers to that question. There's quite a famous artist came up with something. Maybe it was Leonardo da Vinci. It might have been him. Someone as famous as that. Anyway, and the comment was, a painting is never finished, it's abandoned. And I can understand that totally. There are paintings that I've done when I've just walked away and I thought, I've just had enough. I've got to do something else, like skydiving or something. And because you just get to the point where you think, what can I do? Nothing. If I do any more to it, I'll ruin it. And you've got to know when to stop. And I think I'm almost at that point with this one, because I just get the nervous tick under my left eye that says, back off, Davis, go and do something else. So there we are, there's a bit of sky. And I hope it's slightly Turnery. Obviously I'm never going to match him, the great man himself. But it's sort of interesting anyway. So there's a quick hopefully it's not too long, but reasonably quick seascape. I don't know how long it's been. I won't know until I actually get it on my video editor and see what it says about the time. I'm going to just do one thing with this brush, and that is to use the tip, and I'm going to soften that a bit there. Not much. Just a touch. Okay, I'd like to do more to the cliff, but that either will be it for this. I don't know whether there'll be a part 2. Maybe I'll do a roundup of paintings later in the year, and maybe this will be one of those, and I'll show you what it's like, at this stage, and also what it's like when I tormented it a bit more. So I think we're there. What else can I do? I could tickle, I could tickle it for hours, but I mustn't. So I'm just going to add a few streaks of light just here. I think just needs something in there. A few lumps and bumps. What do we think? I think that'll do. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. It means a lot to me. I'd hate to think I was standing here talking to myself. I don't know how, well, none of us do. Nobody knows what's going to happen this year. I'm glad last year is finished. And I think this year, if I'm teaching at all, it may all be online. Now, I've got this thing coming up. I'm doing Skype lessons starting on the 23rd of January. I have one on the 23rd and I think one on the 28th. I'll put all the details below anyway. And if you want to be in a Skype group, feel free to go for it. It'll be interesting. I think I don't think it matters how many people are attending these Skype things. For some reason I had in my head that 25 would be a good number, but it doesn't really matter because well, it just doesn't matter. So if you're interested in doing that, there'll be a link below. If you are one of my patrons on Patreon, and you are contributing more than $10, you'll get the lessons free. Now that's for a limited time. It'll be changing. I don't know what the change will be yet, but at the moment, it'll be, free lessons. I think the normal price is going to be $25, and you get me for an hour. No, 90 minutes. You get me for 90 minutes. And you also get, we do a question and answer thing, so you can ask me stuff, and I promise to be polite. A few more marks just in there, I think. So that could be interesting. So, but you never know, maybe the world will suddenly get over this virus and everything will go back to normal. If it does, then maybe I'll have some teaching venues. I'm not sure yet. I really don't know. Something tells me that the Skype lessons could be quite interesting. The good thing about it, from your point of view, is that you may see, Skype is notorious. People use their webcam, and Skype basically, the image is a bit chunky. But the camera that I'm teaching to at the moment, which is this stonking great thing, will be the webcam. So I hope, the sort of detail you're seeing here, hopefully will be almost the same on Skype. Who knows? We'll see. But I certainly didn't want to do it with an ordinary webcam, because the whole point of teaching online is that you need to actually see clearly what I'm telling you and what I'm showing you. So, I was thinking to myself, am I happy? No, because I'm a miserable so-and-so sometimes, and I'm not happy. So, what is it that's making me not happy? It's this. There's not enough drama in that cliff. Now, I know it's all dark, and it looks like it's made out of something like carbon fibre, or coal, or something, but it just hasn't got the right presence, and I think it's just, I don't know, it's just too, it's the only way I can explain it. So I'm going to just sort of make it a little bit more Lord of the Rings, I think. So I want to try and do something with this, just to make that less of a sort of swoop, like a swoop, and just put a little bit of a bump in it there. And I also want to take this up to something a little bit more, I don't know, just a little bit more presence, I suppose. How's that? That got a bit of presence? I guess it has. And I want to also do something with the sky. I got light over here, and I think that works reasonably well. It's sort of Turneresque. But I think I want to bring a little bit of, so the brush is quite dry. I've really pushed the brush to get the paint off it here. If I use the brush lightly up there, I can darken this down. And I want a little bit more of a threatening sort of sky up there, with just a hint of light there. In reviewing the video on my video editor, I've noticed that I do get in the way a lot, and some people say they don't care. Well, I do. It's a habit I'm trying to break. I get too involved, and I start out thinking, well, I'm out of the way here, but I'm not after a while, because I just drift back in front of it, and one day I'll get the hang of it. So anyway, okay, so apologies for that. I just think I want to darken the sky up here. I want a little bit more, I don't know what you call it, apart from drama. I hate to overuse that word, but it's the thing that I like to get in my paintings. So I'm thinking, let's just darken it right down up here, right into the actual mountain itself almost, so that sometimes there's like possibly a fog that's covering parts of the cliff. Just make it a little bit more vague. Yeah, that's sort of okay. And I think even a bit more darkness down there. Just a touch, a tad. Okay. This is just a little afterthought that I put in at the end. I may put a few little bits of contrast actually in the cliff. That light patch there, I think is too light. Just going to tone it down a bit. It only takes a touch of the brush to do that. But it may mean that I just need to get more structure in there, you know, a little bit more, yeah, structure. So let's have some dark bits here. So what do we think? It's a little bit more, slightly a bit more interesting. Even more darkness in the sky. So I'm using basically here Payne's grey, pretty well straight from the tube. Let's have a nice bit of gloom up there. You may think, oh my God, he's a miserable so-and-so. He always wants gloom in his pictures and darkness. But I'm actually not. I'm actually an optimistic sort of person. It's just my taste in paintings. That's all. Yeah, that's looking a little bit more mysterious, I think. There we go. Well, I guess it's up to the individual. I'm sure there'll be people out there who really don't like this sort of thing, but hey ho. A bit more structure there. Not a lot, just a bit. And I may even do a bit more over on this in the next day or so. Yep, so that's it for now. So hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now again.